Uh, Moving ahead with our next session, fifth session, we have with us Dr. Dinesh Prakash Patil. The chair is here with us. Dr. Dinesh is working as an assistant professor in Department of English, Language and Literature at ARB Gorg Arts, Commerce and Science College, Jamnar, District Jalgaon, Maharashtra. He has 11 years of working experience. He's a young professional and practitioner in the theory of eco-criticism. He has written more than 15 national and international articles for international and national journals. He is also working as soft skill trainer and language lab coordinator. He has undertaken two minor research projects. Under his valuable guidance, he is supervising scholars, PhD scholars as well. So we welcome you, sir, and delighted to have you with us.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Yes, audible.
Hello?
Yes, Dr.
Hello.
Dinesh, you're audible.
It's much to introduce me. And yes.
Dr. Dinesh?
Yes, am I audible? Hello?
Yes. Please
Okay.
check your micro system.
Yeah.
Mic system, yes.
It is okay now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for introducing me. It's been a great pleasure to join such a good venture. And it's a good platform for us to discuss on core issues and the different topics related to gender studies. I have the near about a chart of 5 presenters here. Okay. And now I'd like to the presenter here for this session, Dr. Shimpi Kumari Chaturvedi. Hello. For this session, hello.
Yes, I'm just having a look if Dr. Shimpi
Okay.
is there.
Dr. Shimpi Kumari Chaturvedi, and her title is Standpoint on Gender Adoption Employing English as a Second Language.
I think, sir, she's not available. Can we move on to the next? Dr. Shimpi, are you there? I think we can move on, Dr. Dinesh.
I think there is some technical problem with Dr. Dinesh. If you can call him and ask him.
Yes. In the meantime, we can check. Bindya Singh. Bindya, are you there? Yes, I think Bindya I can see. Bindya Singh, are you there? Priyanka Datta?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Hello.
Yes, I think
Yes.
Dinesh sir?
Dinesh has resumed.
Yes.
Dinesh sir,
Yes, please.
Shimpi is not here. And,
Okay, then next research scholar, Vidya Singh. Vidya Singh is a PhD research scholar, and co-author is Dr. Prasanta Kumar Upadhyay. I would like to request her to present a paper. Her title is Representation of Women and Their Voice in Vikram Seth's Major Works.
Vindhya, please unmute yourself.
Vindhya Singh.
Yeah, Vindhya Singh is here. I can see, but
Okay.
I don't know, maybe because of some technical issues.
Okay, okay.
Sir, but
Then we can move towards the next scholar.
Thank you.
Okay. The third one is Priyanka Datta. Priyanka Datta.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Ma'am.
Okay,
Like,
Priyanka is there.
Okay.
Actually, sir, I have some microphone problem. I am Vidya.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
why I was not able to answer you.
Okay. Okay.
After Priyanka, shall I present my paper, or what should we do right now?
So you can present your paper. Then Priyanka Datta will join. Okay,
Okay,
and you can
okay.
present your paper.
Okay.
And
Okay,
yes,
sir.
please.
Thank you.
Please.
My topic is about concerning women, and sorry, first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Vidya Singh. I am a guest. I'm a research scholar in Veer Surendra Sai University of Technology, Bulla. My area of concern is Vikram Seth only. Today, I am going to present a paper regarding how the topic of women he deals in his works. I will take major works of his. It consists of both poetry, novels, and biographies and autobiographies of his, everything. So let me first discuss about how he presents women as a chief subject in his works. Seth is very prominent about his works, and he deals sorry, he deals about women as a subject who represent an idea, a majorly a basic idea that concerns many aspects. For example, if we go through his novels, we can find women as a chief element. They possess a greater quality than the other characters. Let me start with the first one, The Nightingale and the Frog. Sorry, The Frog and the Nightingale. We have already in the it in 10th class, and it is a widely known poem. But here, Seth project about woman how woman has been so much uh, sorry how woman has been pressurized by the condition of the society. For example, the frog is a male shows a alpha male kind of a scenario, but he is so boastful and everything that the pretty voice of the nightingale got lost. She is being pressurized. She is being projected throughout the uh, poem, and moreover, it is like that the woman figure which the nightingale represent is lost somewhere in the other, because the frog, who is so much imposing, always tries to figure out his mistake. Similarly, if I take you to the other example of his, Vikram Seth, one of the most remarkable work is A Suitable Boy. A Suitable Boy consists of many aspects, many women, and the women are empowering, and they tries to a better future, and a better tries to live in a better society. For example, Mrs. Mehra uh, uh, mainly projects that she is so determined and adamant that she says, Lata, I quote, Lata, you will marry the person I choose. so that she is directly imposing her thoughts, her views on her daughter, so that she is bound to listen to her. It not only signifies the multi personalities that we see in Vikram Seth's novel, but also it projects how Seth has incorporated women as a chief figure in many of his novels. Uh, I will give you another example how this kind of identity politics goes out there regularly. For example, when Lata and her mother visits to her aunt's house, which is in Delhi, they Lata is in constant fear that the the uncle, the figure of uncle is the male patriarchal society is imposing her. Lata, you are a lipstick girl. You are a lipstick girl. It is being constantly said to her, so which signifies that the society tries to weaken them. So society is definitely imposing itself so much that uh, it does not it overpowers them and shows how the whole scenario is. Then the second example I will give you of Seth is of uh, Unequal Music. Unequal Music is a remarkable work of Seth in which he also projects uh, two different aspects. One of the male one, that is Michael, and the female of Julia. They both shows that how these two are very much different from each other, but still they are bound together in a way or the other, because Julia finds herself in Michael and Michael is shown through the lenses of Julia. But independently, when we discuss these facts of feminism and all, we can find that they both know their individuality, but they tries to incorporate each other so that whatever the mistakes are should be in should be seen in form of different aspects. For example, uh, Julia does not think of Julia does not think of how she is going to be deaf in some days, and she will be not able to practice the music. But Michael, on the other hand, repeatedly cares for her, which shows that she is being an object of concealment, so that it shouldn't be go out and it shouldn't be spoken out. Uh, it also shows that how it also shows how Julia is more concerned of herself, because she knew that if I am deaf, it will not hamper me as badly as now, because it is not a part of me. It is only the music which is I am concerned about, she says, because she is more about music than the other aspects, like her breakdowns or her deafness. She doesn't bothers, because she holds on to her identity. The identity that she carries of is the music. At the very end, when we read it, she plays the art of fatigue, the music they both were trying to do from many days. So it is how they both try to it is how they both try to do it. And then then I will go to the next novel, that is of A Golden Gate. Golden Gate also projects the woman figure as a chief, because in that novel, Vikram Seth tries to speak about the different aspects of woman character in Elizabeth as well as Lisa, the both are two characters, but projected as one, because according to Vikram Seth, they are very much strong. They both are very strong characters, and they has a very positive impact on John, who is very much lonely and seeks for a company. Whereas the other figure which he projects, a set project, is of Juliet. Juliet is a very strong figure in the novel, and she is very much independent uh, of any than other characters. And Julia is what Sates want Elizabeth to be: independent, free, and all. And um, to show the power of Juliet, he projects her to be a woman of free music and womanhood, that both are incorporated in Said's novel very much, and it gives a power to them. Similarly, back to the novel A Suitable Boy, we will find A Suitable Boy more amusing and everything, because in Suitable Boy, uh, there are many aspects where we can find that uh, different women plays different role in the society. For example, let it be Lata, Mrs. Mehra, or uh, uh, their daughter-in-law Savitri, or it may be uh, the Chatterjee girls. They all have a very strong individuality. When, for example, the main aspect of this A Suitable Boy is to find a suitable uh, aspirant or a boy for Lata, whereas Lata's options are not been in varied, because she is madly in love with a boy named Kabir. Uh, she cannot marry him, or she cannot have any relationship, because uh, he is not suitable. In terms of suitable, he does not matches the caste, he doesn't matches the creed and everything. The next aspect is of Harish. Harish is more suitable to Lata, because he belongs to the standard norms that is set up by her mother. Here we can see two different aspects of woman which Seth project. One is of a bounded woman that is very much keen to the society, that whatever they are going to be dealing with, they have to speak about that. The other is of Mrs. Mehra. She is a strong woman. She has after Mr. Mehra, she has brought her children on her own, and she knows how the society thinks of her. So she know uh, she has brought up two daughters. One is Savita and the other one is Lata. On contrary, Savita is a very homey girl, if we say. She is keen to everything what her mother says, but Lata is a free spirited. The symbolic representation here Seth wants to project is that Lata is the free spirit of the womanhood that is being that should be projected out to the country, so that uh, they will stand there on their own, and they will have a very modified way of projecting the womanhood in the aspect of the new woman. It is not that the woman who is bound to the conjecture of society. It should be free, it should be uh, equal to the man. What Lata's point of view was, it is not that it is very much the idea of Seth towards feminism is very much different. because he does not think that women should be given power or anything to uplift itself. State's particular idea of projecting women is to liberate themselves. The liberation of women is very much important, so that it will free them, and they will search for their identity in the process. And when they find it, they will know it, that how these how they are independent of themselves as well as from the society. This is what Seth speaks about in all his novels, and moreover, he is very much influenced by his mother, who is Leela Seth, the Chief Justice of the first woman Chief Justice of Delhi High Court in India. So the impact of woman on him is always been like that. He always liked the woman to be in power. He always have given women the power to showcase themselves in a different aspects than what the other novelists do. And a woman is symbolically a image of power for Seth in all his works. He also projects, it is not like that he only projects that woman has only an aspect of power and all, but it also shows that how it has developed in his writing. Because if we go through his previous writing, like the Nightingale and the Frog and the Nightingale, we can see that the woman is being suppressed. But when we go along with his novels, then works, then we will find that the development of women in his works, that shows that he also accepts himself that some of his poems are immature, when he didn't know about the status and all aspects of women. And he also accepts that because of his mother, he is very likely to know that how women are and how the women should be given the power to hold themselves in society. So we can find these things very clearly in his novels. I will conclude that Vikram Seth has given a wider range and aspect of women in all of his work, so that a reader can explore and find out the different images that the women represent in each of the novel. Because for example, if we go through Suitable Boy, there are a number of women character, and every woman is different from other, and they all projects different ideas. This is what Seth tries to project in all of his works. Thank you.
Very good. Hello.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, very nice presentation, and you thoroughly discusses the different aspects related to gender studies, which has been expressed by the sets through his. Okay, now we will turn towards the next presentation, and the next presenter is Gada. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay, next presenter is Priyanka Datta, the English and Foreign Languages University FLU, Lucknow campus, and a title of paper is Towards Critical Discourse Analysis of Gender Portrayal in Femina magazine. Priyanka Datta, I would like to invite you to present your paper.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to present my paper in the 3-day International Virtual Conference on Gender Studies organized by Cape Comorin Trust and Lavender Literary Trust. I thank the organizing members, and I also thank my chair. And now I will start my presentation. I will like to present. So can I present it my PPT?
Yes, you can share,
All right.
please.
Uh, my presentation title is towards critical discourse analysis of gendered portrayal in Femina magazine. Um, the abstract of my presentation is the study attempts to analyze and study the two-sided and contradictory assumptions and presumptions present in the Femina magazine August 2020 edition. Language is the primary power wielding tool for influencing and manipulating the ideology, beliefs, and perceptions of the readers, and the readers are predominantly women. The language manipulations will show the power plays, the covert manipulation, and patriarchy, which is flowing seamlessly through the contemporary Indian society. It can be said by observing that the Indian society has constructed the ideal, successful, faultless, and always hardworking woman. This is also a cunning construct of social gender inequality, where women are boxed into failures and successes based on ideals of perfection and saintly goodness, where the inadequacies of being human with desires and passions is seen as a fault. Um, then I will go to my introduction.
Yeah.
Introduction. In the research paper, I analyze a few pages from the Femina magazine August 2020 edition, and it is to see how the heteronormative person and the socially constructed feminine persona is celebrated in the Femina magazine, and how the household actions and daily banal existence of women is portrayed as glamorous, where all the social inequalities and gender discriminations are blurred and backgrounded. The Femina magazine is one of the oldest magazines for women in India. And through the last few years, I have been a reader. So, with the changing ideology and dominant narratives of the society, they've also subtly changed and manipulated their magazine discourse. But the core has remained the same. Women magazines offer their readers particular definitions and understanding of what is to be a female. It is by Ballaster, who is the author of Women's Worlds, Ideology, Femininity, and Women's Magazine. The basic consumeristic capitalistic thrust of the beauty industry, publicity and advertisement models have remained the same over the years. These subtle manipulations to create a patriarchal sense of freedom and belonging in the readers of Femina was always present. Though the outer presentations have changed and adjusted itself to the dominant discourses through the years, the magazine tries to create a sense of togetherness amongst its readers where only the identity of the heterosexual feminine female and the socially constructed idea of the feminine is celebrated. Women magazines have existed for a long time in the history of media publications, magazines, and newspapers. But strangely, there has been no equivalent of the feminine magazines for women in the men's world of magazines. The raving publicity and media glare and sponsorship enjoyed by the women magazines is not present for its male counterpart. This apparent partiality also raises a few critical questions of why the immense emphasis of feminine, why the idea of the revolutionary equality striving protest of feminism has been craftily fetishized into the harmless, adjusting, and the patriarchy society acceptable feminine. The subtle manipulations of feminism into a patriarchal aspect is a subversive manipulation which has been done in the modern capitalist female magazines. So the enlightenment of the female woman about the real disruptive protesting history of feminism is backgrounded and erased. Some questions for us, the middle class educated woman, the reader group for women magazines as pointed out by Greeny Burton in Media and Society, Critical Perspectives. The constructed and commodified world of women magazines works in the commercial interests of media producers. But does that mean that it works entirely against the interests of the female audience? Is there an outcome in the reader's interests that undercuts the force of ideology? At the same time as this force subordinates women in the social, political, and economic terms. In media and society critical perspectives, Remy Burton also points out about the ever-present male gaze. The point has already been made about the ways in which role, interaction, and representation in women's magazines contains a male dimension. This is most obvious in the respect of the images, fashion, pictures in particular, often with stylized poses, expect the gaze of the female reader. The male figure watches from the margins of the magazine. My argument about appearance, performance, and gaze clearly relates to all other materials which are about clothes and cosmetics. But then the male also lurks on the significant other who is a boyfriend, partner, husband, or even a celebrity. Men are a constant reference point. What is critical discourse analysis? I will then discuss what is critical discourse analysis CDA. According to Norman Fairclough, CDA is the discourse analysis which aims to systematically explore often opaque relationships of causality and determination between discursive practices, events and texts, and wider social and cultural structures, relations and processes to investigate how such practices, events, and texts arise out of and are ideologically shaped by relations of power and struggle over power, and to explore how the opacity of these relationships between discourse and society is itself a factor securing power and hegemony. In my simple understanding, CD aims to make uh, the connections between discourse practices, social structure, and connections that might be otherwise opaque to the common masses. The operations and manipulations and exploitations might be craftily hidden through the dominant discourses, and it can be only unraveled through critical outlook and analysis. The scholars who have immensely contributed to the development of CDR Van Dyck, Ruth Wodak, and Norman Fairclough. Michel Foucault's conception of discourse and the functioning of the language and the theory of power and ideology forms the crux of CDA. Discourses are not once and for all subservient to power or raised up against it, any more than silences are. But discourses are also a hindrance, a stumbling block, a point of resistance, and a starting point for an opposing strategy. Discourse transmits and produces power. It reinforces it, but also undermines it and exposes it, renders it fragile, and makes it possible to thwart it. Foucault. The rationale of my research is the biased portrayal of women in the society and the dominant discourses and ideologies is a constant happening. So the effort to unravel and unmask these blatant biases and oppressions and exploitations needs the critical gaze of the CDA. Hence, due to the imbalances of the patriarchal society and the gendered stereotypes, there are appropriations of the female gaze and the feminist movements under the broader umbrella of patriarchy. Thus, the research on towards critical analysis of gendered portrayal in Femina magazine is a requirement, and the conversations of gender stereotypes, gender discriminations will continue to create disruptions in the dominant discourses of the society. In media and society critical perspectives, Green Burton points out about the representation of the female, the feminine, and the woman magazine. The very phrase woman magazines incorporates an assumption about the coherence of a group of people labeled women who can be represented collectively, spoken for as a recognizable group. It is a coherence that has been manufactured by decades of publication molding the audience. A woman is represented as being universally concerned with things like attractiveness and social behavior, and yet is to a degree separated into domestic woman, career woman, young single woman, and the like. Both the generalization and the differentiation fail to deal with the genuine diversity of the readers. Images from ethnic minorities, where they exist, are westernized, and class is ignored, aging is suppressed, resisted, and denied. Research methodology. I will follow the Norman Fairclough framework model of CDA for the analysis of the select pages of Femina magazine, August 2020 edition. Fairclough's framework for analyzing a communicative event includes text. The first analytical focus of Fairclough's three-part model is text. Analysis of text involves linguistic analysis in terms of vocabulary, grammar, semantics, the sound system, and cohesion organization above the sentence level. Discourse practice. According to Fair Club, the discourse practices has two facets: institutional process, like the editorial procedures, and discourse processes, like the changes the text go through during production and consumption. For Fair Club, discourse practice straddles the division between society and culture on one hand and discourse and language on the other hand. Discourse processes are best explained through the core discussion of intertextuality. Socio-cultural practice for Fairclough, analysis in this dimension pertains to three aspects of socio-cultural context of a communicative event: economic, political, and cultural. According to Fairclough, one does not have to carry out analysis at all levels, but any level that might be relevant to the understanding of the particular event. These key concepts of the socio-cultural practice will be discussed in the following section as a part of outlining a framework for media analysis. Also, additionally, considerations for analyzing media discourse posits that an account of communication in mass media must consider the economy and politics of mass media, the nature of market which the mass media are operating within, and their relationship to the state, and so forth. Some important principles of CDA, as theorized by the scholarly practitioners of CDA like Norman Fairclough, Van Dyke, and Ruth Woodruff, are: language is a social practice and the world is represented through language. Discourse and language are used as a form of social practice to represent and signify other social practices, but it also constitutes other social practices like the exercise of power, domination, prejudice, resistance, and so on. Texts acquire their meaning by the dialectical relation between texts and the social subjects, writers, and readers who always operate with various degrees of choice and access to states, text, and the means of interpretation. Linguistic features and structures are not arbitrary, they are purposeful, whether or not the choices are conscious or unconscious. Power relations are produced, exercised, reproduced through discourse. All speakers and writers operate from specific discursive practices, and CDA does not solely interpret texts but also explains them. Analysis. My research paper presentation will be towards a critical discourse analysis of gender portrayal in Femina magazine, August 2020 edition, and here I hope to unravel and explore the hidden hypocrisies and stereotypes that have been insidiously spread by the patriarchal society, and how even in the independent women magazines of independent successful women, the patriarchal dominant ideology has seeped in. The huge popularity and the economic business aspects has made the women magazines surrender to the capitalistic and dominant patriarchal notions. Due to this, the women magazines project misleading stereotypes of the feminism and the feminine. All the exploitations and oppressions and subtle manipulations that are practiced in the selected few pages of this Femina magazine will be analyzed, and I will try with my limited knowledge to do a proper CDA. But in case of an incomplete analysis, I feel every individual has blind spots, and likewise, certain unfair, unjust cultural, social portrayals and projections might seem normal and acceptable to me. The Femina magazine has done a major overhaul in the portrayal of women emancipation and development in the recent years, and it is visible in the stark change from projecting only Bollywood-centric women development and stardom feminism. But now they have started change that biased, superficial approach and have gained a more balanced portrayal of successful women and their struggles. But the elite class is the only one visible. The burning problems of gender discriminations, violence, and exploitations in the lower stratas of the society, the caste problem, the religion problem, and the economic cultural adversities faced specifically by women in Indian households have been completely negated and made invisible. By reading one of the most reputed and popular women magazines of India, like Femina, the reader will get the immensely partial and untrue idea that only rich and successful and strong women exist in the Indian society, have battled and won all their problems and demons. All the poor and exploited women and their struggles and despairs have been systematically negated by the magazine, and their struggles and sorrows and their treatments have been made invisible. This is the first picture, and I will do the analysis. The CGA model of Fairclough for the Femina magazine, August 2020, first introductory page. Text. The first page of the Femina magazine, August edition, has all the buzzwords of the last few months as headlines. The magazine edition discusses about all the middle class popular topics of the last few months, but it is clear that they have subtly removed all political and controversial topics from discussion. The discussions are only made on the dominant narratives, and every other discourse have been craftily removed from the horizon. It has columns on Be the Change, on the Bollywood actress Rakul Preet Singh, vocal for local, breaking ground, woman making it count, boiled over soups of soul, seeds of revolution when agricultural meets technology. The headline of the Femina magazine gets special mention with the immensely powerful tagline, Femina, be unstoppable. All the taglines of the introductory page show a changed perspective of the Femina magazine, where emphasis is duly placed on all professions of successful women, and there is mention of healthy technology, best affordable healthcare also. So the magazine has made the magazine, though the magazine has been made less glamorous and Bollywood-centric in comparison to its earlier days, but even then only the positive aspects and opinions of the dominant discourses are shown. The political discourses and the controversial protests and failures of the dominant narratives have all been strategically removed from the magazine. Though there is visible exclusion, expansion and inclusion of women from all fields, but only the elite, powerful women are given representation, while the middle class women can follow the columns due to the aspiration factor. But the magazine negates and invisibilizes a big chunk of the population, the poor working class women. In the introductory page itself, the westernized look and concept of the magazine is reflected in the use of English, which is foreign to a huge chunk of the Indian population. The page has no Indian socio-cultural associations, but is immensely westernized in outlook and concept. Also, the way to influence the masses is done through advertisements and columns about rich and powerful successful women, where the poor common masses have zero representation. And the real portrait of Indian villages is also conspicuously absent. And then we go to the second page, which I have thought of analyzing. For the first content page, the page has more pictorial representations than words. The more inclusive, changed viewpoint of Femina is reflected as the columns are of successful women from diverse fields like cricket, hospitality, acting, racing, academics, and scientific research. Also, the choice of clothes reflect the profession. Hence, the factor of unnecessary inclusion of fashion brand advertisements and influence has been considerably lessened. The tagline of Breaking New Ground, the women trailblazers who dared to venture into the male bastion, reflect the immense courage and grit of the successful and powerful woman. Back to the Roots is also represented with a superficial portrayal of a jeans-clad woman farming wearing gloves. Hence, the concept of farming is not even remotely Indian, and the desi ways of farming and clothing are not much emphasized upon. But the fact remains that times are changing, and even the elite apolitical women magazines are also becoming more inclusive of different women and different professions. The dominant discourse and powerful dominant ideologies are only present as stagnant, and only an uniform aspect is represented, where these struggles and protests are backgrounded and erased. The advertisements are all present with an environment-friendly approach. Also, the way to influence the masses is done through the advertisements and columns about rich and powerful and successful women, where the poor common masses have zero representation and the real portrait is also absent. And now I will analyze the second content page. The text contains only columns on many of the contains columns and many of the popular discussion topics which are political and part of the dominant discourse narrative, and only the dominant powerful ideology are given representation and voice in the magazine. All the powerless micro narratives and diverse repressed ideologies are backgrounded. Columns are on ecology friendly accessories, hot list trending of latest news and views on fashion. Sustainable beauty industry is encouraged to the column Wellness Planet First, Beauty Hot Right Now, Home Cooked Food is encouraged to the column Food Spice Bites and Quick Bites, a bowl of comfort. This sometimes soup picture gives us an idea of the tasty recipes being discussed in the food columns. The magazine has donned a subtle low-key appearance. The content section also reflects the apolitical stance of the magazine and the adoption of the dominant patriarchal ideologies, where the feminist views and disruptive voices have been backgrounded and erased. The socio-cultural perspective shows the dominant socio-cultural narratives of the rich and the powerful elite. And then I will go to the conclusion. From this CDA of the three selected pages of the Femina magazine August edition, there can be found innumerable contradictions of representations and the backgrounding and foregrounding tactics. Firstly, like all other women magazines, Femina also pretends that it is a self-contained woman's space, where in fact it is defined to a fair extent by the male gaze and their expectations. Secondly, there is contradiction that generally speaking, the magazine articulates opposing discourse of male and female, yet appeared to speak of cohesion and harmony and satisfactory relation. But in the actual reality, there is rampant female exploitation and oppression everywhere. Thirdly, on one of the most negative and insidious aspect of observation is there is a contradiction in that the reader is identified as a woman, but is addressed as if she is still learning to be a woman. She is not yet, in fact, the woman identified. Fourthly, domestic work in the later pages is given the appearance of entertainment, though interesting fashionable domestic activities, but in reality it is a routine domestic labor without any reward, acknowledgement, or entertainment. And the fifth contradiction is in the way that beauty and appearance is framed in terms of being natural, when the magazine is fully constructed and an artifice. And the last contradiction is present in the representation of home as a place of leisure, but in actual fact, for women, it is the location of labor. Um, and here I will end my presentation. Thank you. Uh, thank you. Hello, sir. Sir, your mic is switched off. Sir, you're mute.
Okay,
Hello,
now
sir.
audible? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
Presentation is over.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. You have presented thoroughly the phenomena of women magazines portray a gloomy scenario of or how appropriation of the feminine gaze. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
And even you discuss with the a model, Perclose model as a framework. That's nice presentation. Now we'll move towards the next presentation here.
Thank you, sir.
Lakshmani, yeah, I will conclude all the my comment at the end. Okay, now we'll go to the next presentation. Then Dakmani Takar, research scholar, Department of Eastern Nihu Shillong. Dakshanmani Dakar. Hello.
Uh,
Yes,
Dinesh sir,
please.
I think Kanupriya is ready.
Okay, it's okay. Kanupriya, Department of English Studies, Central University of Jharkhand, Ranchi. And her title of presentation is The Emergence of Kuna's Identity as an Immigrant in Adichie's The Thing Around Your Neck. Okay, I would like to request Kanupriya, please, with your paper.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So, can you see my screen?
No, you need to share it. Click on that arrow.
Is it visible?
No, not yet.
Yes, yes, I think it's visible now.
Yeah, your screen is on now.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
But if you have PowerPoint, you need to share it.
Yes, yes. I'm sharing
Okay.
it.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm Kanu Priya from Department of English, Central University of Jharkhand. And I'm going to present on the emergence of Akuna identity as an immigrant in Adichie's Thing Around Your Neck. So, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie is an internationally celebrated novelist, and she is known for her best-selling novels, including Americana, Half of a Yellow Sun, the short story collection The Thing Around Your Neck, and the essay We Should All Be Feminist. In her recent works, she addresses the challenges of immigrants, focusing on the issues of national identity and language. The Thing Around Your Neck is a short story collection by Adichie, first published in April 2009, which includes 12 short stories. These stories are full of strong female characters, often struggling to find an identity and overcome the hardships of living in Nigeria and America. One among these short story collection is named after the title of the book, which is The Thing Around Your Neck. So The Thing Around Your Neck is a story of Akuna, who lives in Lagos with her parents and 3 siblings in a room with unpainted wall. She wins the American visa lottery and dreams of a prosperous life in America. She was welcomed in America by her uncle, with whom she stays there. She got herself enrolled in a community college and took a job of cashier at a gas station. In American setting, she became an object of amusement for people. The diasporic struggle uh, Her diasporic struggle was a result of mutual misunderstanding of cultures. At the beginning of story, Adichie shows how Akuna's family believed that all Americans have big car, house, and a gun. Even America is stereotyped by Nigerians. Similarly, the Americans have a misconception about Africans and their culture. Akuna is asked questions like, where do you learn to speak such good English? Do you have a real house back in Africa? Have you seen a car before you came here? Do you use a comb? Does your hair stand up or fall down when you take out the braids? And her uncle also narrates an event when the neighbors complained about disappearance of squirrel after their arrival in the society by saying that Africans eat all sort of things. These questions were a mix of ignorance and arrogance. She replied all these questions with a tight smile as she was trying to fit in, to adapt to a new culture. Even in this foreign land, she felt like being at home, with the company of his uncle and family. She says, you laughed with your uncle and you felt at home in his house. His wife called you Navne, sister, and his 2 school-age children called you auntie. They spoke Igbo and ate gari for lunch, and it was like home. The sense of sharing a common language and similar food interest develops a sense of integrity. For an immigrant, the least one accepts is compassion, not from others, but from the people who could associate to their struggle, the other immigrants. But then the things changed for Akuna. Her uncle tried to molest her. She says, if you let him, he would do many things for you. Smart women did it all the time. How did you think those women back in Lagos with well-paying jobs made it? Even women in New York City. Akuna here represents a major problem of women in her situation. A single woman in a foreign land trusting the relatives, countrymen, who eventually oblige them to practice prostitution or who try to take advantage of them. The trick was to understand America, to know that America was give and take. But the question was how much was much enough to guarantee a smooth life. Her hopes of new life and future shattered when harsh reality hit her heart. The concept of family no longer existed. Illusions about the American dream were broken along with the sense of national identity and integrity. It was time for Akuna to decide her priorities. It was her self-respect which appeared to come in the way of her American dream, and the choice was in her hand. And unlike the most women in her position, she chooses the hard way. Her struggle is pictured in 3 layers. The first is the fact that she is a woman first, then a Nigerian, and finally an immigrant in a white nation. This journey of her is not going to be a smooth one. She had no options but to leave school. She ended living up in Connecticut, worked as an underpaid waitress, but only under the table. She was paid $1 less than her other counterparts just because she was a Black woman. She was reminiscent of her good old days with her family, the time when the only issue of her life was money. But now her real struggle was identity, the sense of isolation, belonging, the cultural, social, and mental isolation. She wanted to write about a lot of things to everyone back in Lagos, but she couldn't. All these days, she made herself invisible in the eyes of her relatives. No one knew exactly where she was, what she was doing, whether she was enjoying or not. White people who liked Africa too much and those who liked Africa too little were the same. Condescending. These were the lines Akuna said for her boyfriend. The relationship with her boyfriend was a non conventional one. Her boyfriend was a young, unprivileged American who, although knowledgeable on the surface about Africa and Asian countries, he romanticizes the life of poor people in these countries. She was close to him as she outpoured all her embarrassing experiences of struggle as a poor Nigerian in front of him. The present which he gifted her held different meaning for both of them. The rich always look for an object of fascination in everything, but the poor will always look for utility. For example, she is gifted a stone, a shiny rock by her boyfriend, and Akuna thought of using it as a grinding stone. His boyfriend had a great laugh at it. This difference of perception towards life and things made Acuna realize that her dissociation with America. And finally, she gained the courage to write a short letter to her parents and eventually discovered that his father was no more. She says, "You curled up in the bed, pressed your knees in your chest, and tried to remember what you had been doing when your father died, what you had been doing for all the months he was already dead." The sense of guilt, coupled with her struggle for an identity, made her stand a miserable position. She regretted each moment she spent in America over people who made her existence felt nothing. She decided to return back to home, even though her mother does not insist doing that. When her boyfriend asks whether she would return to America or not, she doesn't respond, as if even if she returns, she will not return to the America the boyfriend represents. Akuna says, "At night something would wrap itself around your neck, something that nearly choked you before you fell asleep." The thing around your neck was the responsibility, the identity of an immigrant, which nearly choked her every day. Akuna represents the struggle of an immigrant, the constant pressure of making the ends meet. Her gender identity makes her struggle even worse. Her dignity is more vulnerable than anything else. She is not only responsible for herself, but also for her family who waits for her to send them money. She is supposed to create a balance and maintain her mental well being despite the identity chaos which she going through. Akuna denies the advantages of her uncle, unlike the smart woman, as she says, who climbs to the top by selling their soul. She refuses to succumb to the unfavorable circumstances and works hard to earn a living both for herself and her family. She acknowledges the difference of perception between herself and her white boyfriend. She somewhat feels good with him, but also realizes the fact that he's maybe with her out of some sort of amusement. Her identity emerges as that of strong woman after freeing herself from all kind of illusions and accepting reality as it. Her struggles shaped her, empowered her to take bold decisions, and gave her confidence to follow her heart. I would like to conclude this presentation by quoting Indra Nooyi, an Indian American, the former CEO of PepsiCo. She says, "I have an immigrant mentality, which is that the job can be taken away anytime. So make sure you earn it every day." And this is the way Akuna did it. Thank you. So you are mute.
Yeah. Thank you. You have summarizes the all the tragic or the plight of Akuna's life here. and really it is very difficult to point out such a plight or the cultural or identity crisis in perspective of gender studies. Okay, thank you. Now we'll the next presenter, uh, Dr. Shimpi Kumari Chaturvedi. Or Dakshanmani Dakkar, research scholar. There are two presenters here, those who didn't present their paper here, Dr. Shimpi Kumari Chaturvedi and Dakshanmani Dakkar. So
I think they've not
yeah,
joined us.
okay, okay. Now may I conclude the session?
Yes.
Thank you very much again. And first of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Shubhra ma'am and Dr. Regin sir. And in this session, there are three presenters here. First one, Vidya Singh, and second, Priyanka Datta, and then last one, Kanupriya. Both these scholars, scholarly, presented their papers. They all have the unique topic of presentations. They dealt with the aspect of gender studies in a new way. Vidya Singh dealt with the representation of women and their voice in Vikram Seth's major work. He has presented the uh, scenario of Vikram Seth's writing in aspect of the gender studies. Then Priyanka Datta, she discusses and the focus on the discourse analysis with a particular model. And at last, Kanupriya focuses with a work, a thing around your neck, a Jama short story. And she has presented a Nigerian woman's immigrant, her bad plight or the cultural identity crisis here. So all the presenters were have presented very well. Again, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Shubhra Jamwal ma'am and Dr. Regin Sylvester. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dinesh, for chairing this session so well and taking out schedule from your busy timings and being with us. Thank you. Really delighted to have you with us.